Enlightened. Hello everyone, welcome back to Positively Enlightened. So before we get into this week's episode and what it's all about, I kind of wanted to talk about what we did this week and this weekend. For those of you who don't know, Noah's really into house flipping and investment, so I kind of wanted to talk about where we went and stuff about that. Noah?
Yeah, we actually took a trip out to Indiana. If you guys know, I do have another rental property there, so I love that area, and I wanted to go explore more and see if I could possibly buy another rental property there. If you listened to the last episode, no, I did not make my family work for me there this trip.
No, we actually we enjoyed it this time, and I got to actually see places, and I've actually gotten more into investing and seeing like the benefit to it and knowing more about it, so I'm kind of into investing too now and seeing what I can put my money into.
Which I am so glad, because I love investing in real estate, and I think it's one of the best things you can invest in. It never dies.
Yeah, I agree. And like me from 1 year ago, she'd be shocked at me now.
Yeah.
And, like how intrigued I am. Zillow, I'm ready.
Okay, before we get into our episode, though, I want to start it off with a little bit of humor.
Oh my gosh.
I honestly, I wish this was fake. I wish this was not real.
I'm shocked this happened to us, honestly.
So let me paint the picture for you. New Year's Eve, hanging out with my friends, and we're watching the ball drop.
And I was not with Noah. Like I was out of town as well, so like just doing our own thing.
And so we're watching the ball drop, and then it does, and then it just goes into a commercial right after that. I walk away, and then something catches my ear, okay? It is our very own intro song on a commercial.
And it gets worse. It does
get worse. And
like,
I thought, what?
And then I get a text from Noah, and then she's telling me that our intro song is now used as a Weight Watchers commercial.
Yes. I guess the newest Weight Watchers commercial, I mean, they must have heard our podcast, I'm sure.
That's clearly it.
And they were like, we have to have this as our intro song.
Definitely.
So, yeah, our intro song is now on the Weight Watchers commercial.
Yeah. It was like 12:01. I was like, "Oh, Happy New Year!" And then I get a text from Noah, and it's like, "This is our theme song." And I was like, "Oh my god!"
So yes, this is real, but I thought I would share. Okay, without further ado, let's get into it.
So a few weeks ago, I was scrolling on TikTok, and a lot of my TikTok has become a bunch of astrology things and chakras, just because I've kind of been going through a phase, I guess, where I've kind of been into it. Anyway, I was scrolling through it, and I came across this really neat video about the laws of the universe. Now, I'm sure we've all heard of the law of attraction, but I didn't know that there were so many others. So I came across this really cool girl's video. It was Nat Loves Cats 420, and her video started blowing up. I remember she kept posting one right after the other about laws of the universe, and then I came back a few minutes later to see if she posted another one, and boom, like thousands and thousands of followers, and she grew so fast, and she's now got over 250,000 followers.
Wow.
So many, so crazy how fast she blew up. I remember showing Noah the videos, and like she was super intrigued by them, and we were like, we have to have her on the podcast, you know?
Yes, we were so excited that she was going to be a guest with us here today. So she is going to be sharing some of her insights about the laws of the universe and astrology.
So before we call her and talk to her, I kind of want to ask Noah, like, what are your thoughts on laws of the universe and astrology? Like, are you a strong believer? Are you open to it? What do you think about it?
Honestly, I never really thought of them as being related before this. Like, the laws of the universe were nothing to me. I had no idea what this was. Like,
Same.
Yes, I've heard of the law of attraction, and that might be the only one. Honestly.
I think so too. Honestly, I didn't know about any of the other ones until I came across her videos. But what about astrology? Like, are you open to that at all?
Of course, like I'm open to learning about everything. I feel like I've always been like one to be like, "Ooh, okay, my horoscope's on here. Let me check it," but not religiously. Like, I'm not checking it every day and living by it. But if I'm about to make some big decision, I might be like, okay, everything's aligning. Let me just see what today holds. If my horoscope said, like, don't make the big investment today, I might second guess it. I might. What about you?
I completely agree. And I think there's some sense of comfort in it. Like when you're going through a really hard time, sometimes you do want to be acknowledged like, okay, you are going through a hard time. And if you want to blame it on the stars, go for it. If you don't, that's also fine too. But I just think there's so much out there that we don't know about that it's just, I don't think that we can totally eliminate it as being a real thing. Like we used to think the earth was flat. Okay, we've come a long way, but still, like, we don't know everything, you know. But
Totally. Yeah.
I'm also really confused on my own zodiac sign, because for the longest time, and I'm still gonna say this, I'm a Pisces, I thought, but according to all these apps I got, they're now saying I'm the next one. Was that Aquarius, Aries?
Aries.
Aries. Yeah, they're now saying I'm an Aries. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to believe anymore. So I'm extremely conflicted.
I know. I would stand by you are a Pisces. Definitely more than an
Me
Aries.
too. As we can tell by the personality test episode, I am emotional.
Yeah, and it's funny because I would say the thing that brings me back to zodiac signs
Mm-hmm.
is the compatibility and incompatibility. So, like, you know, some signs, like, they just never get along or they
Yeah.
always irk you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that happens to me all the time with, like, two signs. And if I'm feeling that vibe from somebody, I'll think to myself, like, I wonder if they're this.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, Noah and I have been right about it a lot.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this person's
Mm-hmm.
giving me the same like vibes as this person,
Yes.
and they have the exact same sign. That's happened so
I would
many
I would
times.
honestly say like 90% of the time we'll get it right. It's pretty accurate. It's
Yeah.
kind of weird. Like even somebody was telling me a story
Mm-hmm.
about somebody they don't like,
Oh
and I
yeah,
knew what like their sign was and what the other person's sign was, and I was like, "Ooh,
yeah.
I wonder if they're a."
I think we both had the same idea. We're like, oh, are they a like a something? I don't want to call them out, but we were like, are they that? And they, sure enough, they were.
Yeah, and obviously not everybody is under the same exact guidelines,
No, yeah,
but it happens, and it's kind of weird. It's a little weird. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah. It's kind of fun too.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm excited to bring on our guest now.
Hi, Nat. Thank you so much for being here. From seeing your videos to seeing them blow up, we're just so excited to have you.
Yeah, it's weird. It's been crazy. Like it was strange. It wasn't. I was like never, I guess, like meant. Like I never really intended to start TikTok or to start an entire page about everything that I talk about. But after the Laws of the Universe video and I posted those, it all like grew from there. But what was crazy was that like when I made those videos, I didn't even make them to be a TikTok. I made them I made them just because I came across it and I thought it was really interesting. So I made those videos for my friend and I was just like, that'd be really interesting if I put that on TikTok, even if like, I don't know, 20 people saw it or whatever. Yeah. And then it just started growing so fast from there. And now I'm doing it full time. So
crazy. Yeah, I remember I saw you and I think I was like one of like the first viewers. You only had like 100 likes at that time. And I was like, oh, this is so interesting. I never usually follow people right away like that. But I was like, this is just such an interesting topic. And then I checked back on your video to see if you had any more. And then it really blew up. It was crazy.
It did. It blew up very fast. It was, after like 200 views, I was like, oh my God, I feel hurt. I didn't think 200 people would see this. And then now here I am a month later and my page has grown so much.
Crazy. Wow. Well, we found it very informative. So we would love to have you on here and talk more about everything. We'll just dive right into it.
Perfect.
Okay. So I'm very new to all of this. So what are the laws of the universe?
So the laws of the universe are thought to be like intrinsic, unchanging laws of the universe that spiritually. And they actually originated from different ancient cultures have always had an understanding of them. And I think it's interesting that on the West side, we don't teach them whatsoever. But they came from ancient Hawaii. That's where they kind of started from, as well as different Hamitic philosophy from ancient Egypt. But there's 12 of them and they're all interconnected. And the thing is that if you don't know them and aren't informed on them, you will feel like you'll really struggle with overcoming different hurdles within your life and feel very lost. And it wasn't until like I had no idea what they were until I posted the videos about them. That was the day that I figured out what they were. And I was shocked that people hadn't informed me on that before and that most people that I knew didn't know what they were either. Right. And so throughout them, they're all like tied into each other. And, everybody knows about the law of attraction, right? And that just blew up on its own. And I think that's actually how I ended up finding them, was researching about the law of attraction. But there's also, so there's the law of divine oneness. And the law of divine oneness is how it discusses how everything is interconnected, like how we all are, we're all made of the same material, right? We're all made of the same space dust, and we're all one thing. And so the law of divine oneness, right? So everything's interconnected, like, and the way that I kind of explained it in my TikTok video, I like the way that I explained it there, because I said, you know, the way, like, all of our atoms, like, right, there's atoms, and they connect to make bigger things, which makes even bigger things. It's comes down to that concept. And then there's the law of vibration, which is very similar to the law of attraction, because everybody vibrates at certain frequencies. Everything, actually, I should say, every single thing vibrates at a certain frequency. And it has to do with the fact that how, kind of like I said, has to go with the law of attraction. So like vibrational things will attract other like vibrational things, if that makes sense. So like low energy will attract more low energy, and higher frequencies will attract other high frequencies. So if you're vibrating at a lower frequency, then you will attract kind of more negative things within your life. But if you're unaware of that, then you don't know how to fix it or the steps to take from there. And then there is the law of inspired action, which again has to do with the law of attraction and has a lot to do with manifesting. On TikTok, I often see people attempting to manifest something and not taking any action into it. They're like, yes, like bring me $1 million, and or like I have $1 million, and then not working. And so the law of inspired action is just like how you have to get the momentum started for things to keep going.
That makes sense.
And with the law of inspired action, there's also the law of perpetual motion, which is just an object in motion stays in motion. It really is that simple. It's just about building momentum, which is really why in my TikTok I stated that it has a lot to do with physics, because I mean that's Newton's law. That's physics, is an object in motion stays in motion. And then there is the law of cause and effect, which is just karma. Karma is totally real. It's totally real. Yeah. That one's really simple. And then the law of compensation, which is how you reap what you sow. So again, very similar to karma, but this one's really important to remember when you've been working really hard and things just don't seem like they are turning out the way you've wanted them to. And it's important to remember that the universe has a plan for you, even if it's not the plan you have set, or things aren't going on your timeline. They're going on the timeline that they should be going, and things are going to fall into place for you.
Definitely. That's good to remember.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And there is the law of relativity, which this one's really interesting to me, because if you look at a lot of psychology, this one has a lot to do with that. And so the law of relativity has to do with how it also has a lot to do with social constructs. So it's if a collective has an idea of something, then from there, more people are apt to agree with that.
Okay.
So like with social constructs, especially like if you think about the way women are supposed to be versus the way men are supposed to be, that's the easiest one for me to think about, and how you grow up thinking these things and you don't even question it because the people around you all think the same thing. And so it's really easy to fall into that, even though there's a lot of areas where that one's challenged. And then the law of polarity, which is a whole yin-yang situation, where there's light, where there's dark, where there's good, there's bad. They cannot exist without the other. And I don't even really like using the words good and bad, just because things just kind of are.
Yeah.
And so the law of polarity is really, it has to do a lot with highs and lows in your life. So remembering that where there is low times, good times are coming, and with good times, it makes you more appreciative of those good times, just because you know things won't be perfect forever.
Right. Yeah.
And then there is the law of gender. And so the law of gender is really interesting to me, because it is believed that our higher self is actually androgynous, which makes a whole lot of sense, because when I think about it, I'm just like, wait, why would it not be? Why would a higher self have a gender? That wouldn't make any sense. And so with the law of gender, it talks about how you how, again, with social constructs, how like you're going to display certain, your like thoughts can be feminine and actions can be masculine, and but they both have to exist for creation to even become. And even things like light and plants, all of it has different masculine and feminine traits. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting about it in regards to people, though, is that whether it be masculinity or femininity that you kind of try and hide, it will show up in your shadow self. And so your shadow self is parts of yourself that you don't really want to see, okay, which is why it's called a shadow. It's like, if you think about, so like shadow work is putting light into those areas. So like it comes with things like addictions and just all those parts, parts of yourself that you just don't want to know.
You just want to hide, kind of, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. That nobody else sees. And okay. And then let's see, where am I? And then the law of transmutation of energy. And that one was kind of difficult for me to understand. It was a weird one. But it makes sense though, because the law, it basically, what it means is that small things create big effects. So if you think about how making your bed, right, that's a really simple task. But if you make your bed every single day, it gets you into a habit that creates better habits. Oh. And so it's kind of like a snowball effect almost.
Oh, okay. That makes sense, yeah.
And then there is, that may be it. Did I go through all 12?
I can't believe
I did, I think.
I know. I honestly
think I did.
Wow. Oh my
I think goodness. I did.
Because so many people.
Dang. Okay, wow.
And I had no idea that these even existed until pretty recently. I think I'm telling you, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so much.
I didn't either whatsoever, and I hadn't seen anybody like talk about it on TikTok either, which is like, you kind of feel like every video, all types of information are already on there because it's TikTok. Like there's billions of people on there, yeah. And so I'm sure somewhere out there are videos about it, but I hadn't come across any either. And so I thought it was just super interesting to know, and to know that they're so important. And yeah. The fact that you just feel so lost without them, right? Because like, especially if you think about like the law of polarity and the law of compensation, life is tiring. It really is. And you get burnt out, and sometimes it feels like you worked really hard for something and you didn't receive it, or didn't get what you wanted, and life hurts. Yeah. But it's nice to know that no matter what, things will shift in the right direction for you, and everything you're experiencing is simply an experience, and it's there to teach you something.
Yeah, I just think knowing more about them too just makes for a more positive outlook on life, because like you said, when you do know, okay, I'm going through a tough time, there is going to be something that comes out of it, some good that will come out of it. I love that.
Exactly. I totally agree. And I thought they were so fascinating.
Yeah, I'm so glad you shared those. Yeah. I do want to talk about astrology and how you got into it. Was there like a certain age that you got into it, or what? Like, were you always aware of it growing up?
I was aware of it, but I definitely thought astrology was a bunch of mumbo jumbo for a very long time. Which is so interesting looking at things now. It actually wasn't until a couple months ago that I got into astrology. I had been I only knew that there was your sun sign for a very long time, as most people do. And so that's kind of, I feel like that's how a lot of people end up thinking that astrology is just a bunch of mumbo jumbo, is if they are only aware of your sun sign, because that's only, there's 12 different signs and and 12 different planets and 12 different houses. And so there's a lot of different variables that go into it. And that's how it ends up being so personalized to you. But how I kind of got into it was after I kind of started and blasted off on my spiritual awakening and learned about vibrations and such. I think is how I kind of ended up getting into it. And then when I learned that there are so many different aspects, I'm like, oh, well, I'm kind of curious to see this. And then the app Costar came around, which there's a whole lot of controversy about now because, apparently they're putting, negative things on there or whatever. I personally really like the app Astro Future, but anyways,
That's good to know because I just started using Costar. What are your opinions on it? We can cut this out too if you don't want to talk about it.
Oh, I really don't care. My opinions on Costar, I really think Costar's fine. I think that Astrofuture gives a better explanation of your actual natal chart, but as an app, I really think Costar's fine. I still use it. I still look at it, but there's just there's a whole lot of controversy around it, saying that I saw a couple videos saying that Costar puts basically negative things on there to make you want to look at it, which I thought was really interesting. Like saying kind of like toxic things. But I personally think it's fine. And it was very helpful app for me because it does still like break down your planets and your houses and things like that. And so it was a great, that's like where I started learning about it. And so I would still recommend it to people for sure.
Okay.
And then from there, it really was it was very fast. It was very accidental. I just thought it was very interesting and then kept reading about it and reading about it and reading about it. And then now we're here. And now we're here and it's 3 months later and I know far more than I should about astrology.
That's crazy. Yeah. I feel like, I barely know about astrology, just the basics, but you could just go down that rabbit hole and it seems like so much information.
It is never ending. I feel like there's nowhere to stop learning about it.
Yeah. So my question is, are there certain features that you've noticed or that you know about that different astrology signs have, like physical features?
I would definitely say yes. Okay, so let me clarify that I don't think that like every single person that's within that sign has to have it, or that if you don't have it, then you're not that sign, because I got a lot of comments saying things like that. But I definitely have noticed that, yes. I like, oh my gosh, Pisces, so it has to do with your rising sign. And I would definitely say your sun sign determines different features as well, but your rising sign is really where it like kind of comes from. So for me, I'm a Cancer rising, and I have been told my entire life that I have a baby face. And that's a huge thing for Cancer risings. And with, and also my video, like I noticed that Cancer risings have an arched eyebrow, like more commonly than other signs, which I thought was very interesting.
Like and eyebrow or both?
Both.
Oh, I was like,
arched eyebrow. One arched unibrow. And as far as like, oh my gosh, Pisces risings, like Billie Eilish, their eyes, they capture you with their eyes. It's insane. The like big dreamy, they just have this dreamy look in their eyes, and I love it. I love that about Pisces risings. So yes, I definitely think that different signs have different physical features for sure.
So is the rising sign like the most common one that people usually know?
People typically know their sun sign.
Sun sign.
Which so like if you, and that's the one that's determined by your birth date.
Okay. And what's rising?
So rising's determined off of the time that you were born. And so from there, the way it is where the ascendant was. So it's a planet in your first house, and it's where the ascendant is at the time you were born. And it has to do, so like in your first house, there's always going to be that's always where your rising sign is.
Okay.
And so your rising sign really is your mask, like in how you come off as to other people. Which is very interesting, because like a lot of people are like, yeah, I don't really like identify with my rising sign, and then you meet them and you're like, oh my gosh, how? And just because it's not really what like you identify with and how you think of yourself, it's just really how other people see you. And so it's pretty interesting. So like me, my sun sign, I'm a Gemini, which a lot of people assume, but I'm a Cancer rising, which makes a whole lot of sense because I'm sensitive. I like to, I'm very nurturing towards other people, but I don't really identify with Cancer type qualities per se. And so your rising sign is how you come off as to other people.
Okay. That's good to know.
And then, what?
You have more. You can go ahead and like hit us with anything. We're all open to the information.
Okay, good. And so what I was going to say is that also so a lot of people like go off of their big three. Mm-hmm. Those are three like big main placements. And so then there's also your moon sign. And so your moon sign is your deeper emotions. And whereas your sun sign is just kind of like your basic ego personality, which is why most people know that one. And your moon sign is your your really deeper emotions, your inner self, your inner knowing of yourself. Mm-hmm. And the moon signs are really interesting because it'll come up as different. Moon signs will display certain behaviors that are really specific to their sign. That one is like definitely important in my opinion. Okay. And I had no idea even like what a natal chart was or what it looked like or how to read it. Mm-hmm. It was all very confusing to me. But when I think about astrology and I think about how like, so the moon obviously affects the tides and the water. Humans are 75% water. Who are we to say that that's not a possibility that this would actually affect us? I mean, we get affected by gravity. Why not astrology? Mm-hmm. And so it's the whole topic of astrology has become very interesting to me, especially within its controversy. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like I'm a very open-minded person. I am like, and so like, if anybody teaches me something, obviously I'm going to do my research about it and like want to know. But to think that something like that isn't a possibility, I feel like is a little bit close-minded. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just to like completely shut it down. Because if you think about how many different events throughout science there have been where we have thought something is or is not true that ended up being the vice versa. Like, mm-hmm. I feel like there's so much going on in the universe that we are not aware of. Definitely. And so with that being said, like with there's being so much that we don't know, like who are we to shut anything down?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we've always said the same exact thing, is that we just don't know enough about the universe to totally say, hey, that's definitely not a possibility. And that people that don't think there's any possibility definitely are a little bit closed-minded. So I think that's really good to share.
Yeah, and that's why we started this podcast is, I mean, everybody has so much information to share, and we love seeing what does somebody else have to say? What do they have to share? Because there's so much information out there and so much just good things we could learn from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How has been starting a podcast? How has that been for you guys?
It's been surprisingly really well. Like our numbers and our growth has been amazing. We're so thankful to everyone that does listen. We were a little shocked at first just because the first episode, it was rough. Like we didn't know what we were doing. We were just getting into it, but it's been really great. It's been really fun.
Yeah. That's awesome. That sounds really fun.
Yeah. Guests. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. We're having new guests almost every single week. So it's been great.
That's cool. That's super cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to ask, is there signs that you think are easier to get along with or harder to get along with?
Yes. Well, it's funny because like I'm a Gemini and a lot of people don't get along with Geminis. Yeah. And just because Geminis typically are pretty opinionated. And so for me as a Gemini, I have a really hard time getting along with Virgos. I really like Virgos, but when I'm around Virgos, I feel like I'm annoying them. They are like, when I talk, I just feel like I'm annoying the crap out of them. And they're just so organized. I can't even understand it, how organized and particular they are with and detail oriented. Like I'm a very detail oriented person, but not in an organized fashion whatsoever. They're practical. I'm not practical. So yes, I would say that Virgos and Pisces are the hardest for me to get along with. Pisces, they just don't feel very realistic to me. Mm-hmm. Like they just have a tendency to be a little bit more idealistic than I am. Right. So I have a harder time with that and I'm not structured enough and Pisces are not structured enough for us to get along.
It's just a mess.
It's just really messy.
That's funny.
I have like a random question. I don't know if you'll know or not. I've never really asked anyone this, but I'm on like the cusp of like Pisces and Aries. And when I go to different apps, they're like, oh, you're a Pisces, you're an Aries, because I'm the last. Mm-hmm. What should I look at? Like, do I look at Pisces at whatever I'm feeling?
Look up your specific birth date, like with the year and everything, like without just the way, because my dad's the same way between Pisces and Aquarius. Mm-hmm. And the way I looked it up is I just looked up his birth date and then with the year. So that's really the best thing I would do. Okay. Would be to look it up with the year attached, just so that it should. What date? When's your birthday?
March 20th.
See, I say that's Aries.
Okay, that's why I didn't know what to say. I just figured that out recently too, because I've been saying a Pisces this whole time, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I?
Yeah, absolutely, I am. I have a friend who's like that too, and she was going through the same thing with Libra, Scorpio, and it's a little odd when you can't figure it out. Yeah, especially if you identify as both. Mm-hmm. If you just like read both of them and you align with both of them, but yeah, I would definitely say that's Aries. Would be my personal opinion on it.
Oh, okay.
What do you say to people who think astrology is fake, or they're like, that's a hoax? No, I can't believe it.
You know, it's funny to me because everybody's entitled to their own opinion. They are. And so I wouldn't think any less of anybody that does not believe in astrology, because I definitely did not believe either. Mm-hmm. What I ask people to do though is to look at, because they're, so what I ask people to do is to look at the whole thing before looking at, I ask them how much, well, first off, I ask them what they know about astrology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have been surprised as to at how many people will say that astrology is fake or a hoax or whatever, mm-hmm. and then know absolutely nothing about it. Like, just not, like, absolutely nothing. Right. And so and they're like, well, I don't care to learn about it. And I'm like, well, don't say it's fake if you don't even know what you're talking about. Yeah. And what I typically ask people to do is to look at their entire natal chart and tell me if they align with it. Look at all of the pieces and have it completely broken down to look at it and the conjunctions of the planets and everything, and then tell me what they think. And more often than not, that has resulted in people going, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah. And it's crazy. It's funny. I haven't often run into someone, or if ever run into somebody that will say something like that and actually know a lot about it, which obviously like most people, if they say that, they're not gonna know a lot about it, just right. Yeah. Because why would they research it if they think it's fake? But my phone went on low power mode. But yeah, that's typically my approach to it. Like I said, I definitely was one of those people at one point in time as well. So I understand where they're coming from, and it seems a little out there at first. Mm-hmm. But after looking really far into it, not usually after reading over someone's natal chart with them, they will more often than not open their mind up to a little bit.
Definitely. Interesting. That's really cool. Do you think that your zodiac sign can affect the type of career you go into, or do you think that's more free will? What's your thoughts on that?
I definitely think it has an effect. So if you look at, like, definitely free will for sure, and it definitely depends on the person, mm-hmm. but on a more often than not aspect, mm-hmm. I would say yes, it does. So if you look at like Aries, for example, Aries, they're great leaders and they are communicative. They're very competitive, they're constantly changing, and they typically need their job to give them a sense of self. And so like a desk job would be a terrible job for an Aries, mm-hmm. like horrible. Mm-hmm. Like it just does not make sense. Yeah. It's because they're fire sign, they're passionate, but they make great leaders and great managerial positions. But just like a basic desk job would be terrible for an Aries. Just like for a cancers are sensitive and nurturing and just very caring and kind. They do a great job in the healthcare industry and the educational industry, whereas people like Geminis may not as much do as well, because maybe a little less empathetic or a little less and not quite organized enough maybe to be in those fields. And so Geminis, they're all about intellect. They're all about communication. They need room to express themselves. And so it's, yes, I do think it has an effect for sure, just because it does, like, you know, different personality types have different careers that fit them best. And since it has an effect on the way your personality is, I do think that it does, yes, have an effect on your career choices.
Really cool.
Yeah. Okay, my last question. I've seen this on TikTok everywhere. It's like these hertz noises, like a certain hertz. And I'm like, okay, does it make me feel more calm, or is this real?
Or are there different amounts?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So sound healing is really interesting. There's a lot of different ways to do sound healing. And so with sound healing, there's like different ways you can go about it. There's tuning forks, singing bowls, and my favorite is solfeggio frequencies, which, by the way, you can find on Spotify, on YouTube, on anything like that. And so the thought behind it is that it can shift your personal frequencies. So everybody like radiates at a vibration. And what is thought to happen is that it can release energetic blocks and raise you into a higher frequency by simply listening to the sound. Because like I was saying earlier, humans are 75, something like that, % water. And water is a great conductor for sound vibrations. And so what's thought there is that listening to these sounds can release these blocks that have been happening within your chakras, and lift the block and release it, allowing lower stress levels, allowing healing, allowing better sleep, less mood swings.
Wow.
Really cool.
There's a whole lot of benefits to it, and there's lower blood pressure is one of them too, improve circulation, and that's something that has been practiced for so long. And another thing that I wouldn't have had any idea about until I got into like meditation and stuff, but it my personal favorite is 528 hertz. It's the universal sound of miracles and of healing, and it's for your heart chakra. So I definitely recommend that.
Okay.
I love sound healing. Honestly, it brings me. I couldn't tell for a long time whether or not it was doing anything for me, but when I sit down to meditate, what I found that's really interesting is, so if I'll do a full chakra meditation, each chakra has a different frequency that it vibrates at. And what I found is that if I sit and like put my headphones in and play a chakra healing full through, like just all full 7 of them, is that when they're playing the frequencies that align with that specific chakra, I can actually feel almost like a wiggle, like an internal like wiggle of energy within the different energy centers. And so like if it's on my root chakra, I feel this like tickling sensation like down in my lower like groin area, and then as it moves up, you can like literally like feel like tingling sensations move up, and it's so interesting.
This is really cool. I bet that'd be relaxing too. We'll have to try that.
It is. It feels great. It feels lovely. I love it.
That's awesome.
Wow, very neat.
I think that's all the questions I have. Is there anything else that you want to share with us, or anything you feel like we didn't cover?
No, I don't think so. I've had a pleasure talking to you guys. It's been really fun.
Yeah, you're so fun.
Thank you so much for that information and sitting down with us.
Appreciate you guys having me. Thank you so much for this opportunity.